We're back, babies. Oh my lord, you are in for a treat with the Obi-Wan finale. I'm not going to say anything. All I will say is I am rethinking my ranking of all Star Wars. If this was the film, and I will say Obi-Wan is now a film for me. It's episode 3.5. I'm going to say Rogue One is episode 3.8. Everybody knows my favorite is number 4, Empire Strikes Back. I work backwards to Star Wars, the original. That makes sense. 4-3. Controversial. I'm sorry. 5-4. Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars. Controversially, I didn't have Return of the Jedi as my number 3. I had Revenge of the Sith as my number 3, which is episode 3. And then I would go Return of the Jedi. When Rogue One came out, I put Rogue One even above Return of the Jedi. Now.
What now?
Now I am actually considering Empire, New Hope, wait for it, Obi-Wan, Revenge of the Sith, and then Return of the Jedi. Oh, I'm sorry. And then Rogue One, then Return of the
Jedi. You watched the last episode, I take it.
I did.
Yeah.
I thought
I'm in shock.
So I haven't seen
the
sequels. I haven't seen the last
prequels
they made.
Oh no, that's dog shit compared to this.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, of all scenes from the first 6, right? The first 6, the 3, and then the prequels. Yep. I think that specific scene that you're probably thinking about, I think that was maybe the second best scene in anything of those.
I agree with that.
You know what I'm talking about?
You're killing me. You guys are killing
top
me.
3.
I won't be at the afternoon meeting today. No reason.
Next level.
It was like I was shocked. It was pretty crazy. All
right, let's leave it at that. Tomorrow, Lon will be on the show to talk about Talk about the.
My God.
Hold on, I just need to.
I better time block this shit.
Hold on, gold-blooded. I just need to dab here. You know, it's we're having a heat wave here. My air conditioners blew out. We lost power. California's completely foobarred.
We're a failed state. We're fun.
Literally a failed state. I've made my decision. I'm going to move to Reno. I'm moving to the Reno side of
playing slots.
Okay.
I'm moving to the Reno side of Tahoe, so I can.
Ooh,
and literally, so I can just hang out at the casinos and ski.
Now I would do this actually. Yeah. This is good. I could definitely get behind the Reno side of Tahoe. I'm in for that.
100.
I know a really good restaurant in Reno, but right by the ballpark, they have a shockingly nice, like AAA ballpark. Yeah,
the plan is I want to buy a card room.
I had to sleep in my guest room last night. It was so fucking hot here.
You don't have AC in that place?
No, it's Oakland. Like nobody does. Although I have a meeting at some point Friday or this weekend to talk about getting a electric heat and cooling pump.
Yeah.
You know about these electric heat pumps? They're super efficient, and then they run on your solar. And then because of all the efficiencies, like there's a bunch of incentives, and you can get them for like
nothing,
no money up front.
Yeah. All that stuff is great. The interesting thing that's happening now, when I first went to San Francisco 10 years ago or so, they were like, yeah, you don't need air conditioning. It's like a week or 2 a year. You just kind of deal with it. If you want to get like an in window, you could just have one of your rooms, and everybody just goes to that room for the week. And like literally, that's how people handle it. Nobody has ductwork. When you come to San Francisco, all the apartments have little electric heaters plugged into the wall, or electric baseboard heating. You can remote control it, turn it on, but they don't have vents. There's no HVAC in the basement, kind of thing, right?
Yep.
In a lot of these apartments, okay.
I'm a little worried that that's what I'm going to find out. Is that
you probably have no ductwork there, but what's going to happen now is
I have forced air heat, so
you do, okay.
It exists, yeah. It's not like one of those San Francisco row houses or anything. All right, we should probably do this.
Anyway, let's get started here. Okay. Anyway,
4 minutes, 30 seconds, 31, 2, 3.
Okay, quick time loading.
You'll be back.
Escape. You'll be back. You'll see. You'll remember.
Oh, that's right. You belong to me like before.
I love that shit. That's the greatest.
Oh my Lord.
Ocean rise, oceans rise,
empires fall.
You have seen each other through it all, but when push comes to shove, I will send a fully armed battalion to remind you of my love. So awesome. So
oh yeah, we're taking this show on the road.
Definitely. We're going to just say, this is my concept for this week in Startups Live Tour. Everybody we have karaoke contest at the end. And Molly and I will participate.
Definitely.
And we will do some duet. I was thinking a winning duet is Don't Go Breaking My Heart, Elton John, Kiki D.
Don't go breaking my heart. That's a good one. That's a good one. Yep.
It's so good. I think it's like big energy.
It's a really fun one. That's a party song.
I want to get a piano player to do, like when I lived in New York, we would go sometimes to the West Village.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of places, also in the theater district, in Hell's Kitchen, there was a place where everybody at the end of the Broadway shows would go to these 2 or 3 places afterwards to have a couple of drinks and network, and just hang out. And so I would go to these sometimes, get a couple of friends who were, theater adjacent, let's say. And they would just play songs on the piano and different people would get up and just sing. But, Patti LuPone would come up or, famous people would come up.
There's a great piano bar.
Rufus Wainwright.
Do you have like a thing on your forehead?
I might.
Is there like a bug?
It could be. We had, we've been having a bunch of mosquitoes.
So, no.
Well, it's these giant ones that don't bite you. So that's the upshot.
Yeah, that was just sitting there.
Literally, I know what happened was my daughter came up and smacked me on the head. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. She's like, no, it was a giant mosquito. And that was it, apparently. So there it goes. All right, let's get started here. We got a lot to talk about. A lot of show. Hey, Evernoties. Let me say hi to some noties while I tweet the show.
Hey, noties.
I have to tweet the show. I don't know. We have the...
everybody's on board with our Reno plan and our karaoke plan. In fact, I saw someone say I would pay for that. Well, don't tell them that because it'll become a...
No, I don't want it to be a moneymaker. No, I want it to be a fun party. That's my new thing.
Oh, it's my homie Flux.
My goal is to maximize fun. So I want, after the All In Summit, those 3 parties were so next level. I mean, I guess when you spend $1 million on 3 parties, or maybe 1.2, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I kind of went for the oysters.
Turns out.
They're like, hey, would you like this? I was like, I'd like this plus this. And they're like, that's $50,000. I was like, gelato bar, $50,000. Boom. It was just $25,000, $50,000. It was great.
You should see Jay Calhoun nickel and dimes every other part of that conference. And then the parties, he was like, more.
I was like, more. Well, no, I mean, you got to spend it. I was like, how do we have a Godfather party with an Italian theme? You don't have steak Florentine. They're like, you want to do steak Florentine for 650 people? I was like, do it for 300. We run out. We're good. People, if they get to it in time, they get to it in time. That's my trick.
Exactly.
Little trick.
Only half the people ever eat anyway.
But that's the thing. People show up. They had a nice dinner. Or here we go. We are live. Okay, say hi to the noties while I do this tweet.
I was saying hi to the noties.
All of them. I mean, there's so many. I know I did.
I know we got Jeremy. We got Matt Hubbard talking about Ewoks. Let's see, wanting to know where things fit into the canon. That's for tomorrow. Save it. I'm going to scroll up and see who our first nodie was. There was a lot of talk about, is Cuban an investor in Inside.com?
Yes.
Oh, related to drug companies.
How did that come up?
Because we're talking to the pharma CEO today, and then the Cuban drug company came up.
Oh,
today.
We should definitely have. I have Marco to talk about that. Yeah, that's his thing too, right?
I think when it launched, I was like, we should get him.
That's easy to do. Yeah.
There was a report about yesterday that I'm spoiling a little bit of the intro I'm going to do for tomorrow for the interview, that said Medicare could have saved $3.5 billion last year if they'd used Mark Cuban's pharmacy.
Oh my God.
Taxpayers revolt.
I have a theory, by the way, of the Mark Cuban pharmacy. So let's talk about that when we do our intro banter for the show. Cool. Remind me that I have a little thing there. Oh, hey. Oh, look, 100 of you here already. Hey, everybody. Oh, 97. Hey, everybody. There's 100. Give us a thumbs up for your squad. We're getting started here on a Wednesday. It's hump day. We're at the top of the mountain here, cresting and coming down. And we'll slide into the weekend. Going to do a little mountain biking. Give us a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Ring the bell. And you will get updates when we go live. We'll take a couple questions here, and we're about to hit 50, so we'll send a liquid IV.
Let's go.
Tell us what your summer trip is. Tell us your summer trip you have planned, your dream summer vacation. So if your dream summer vacation is going to Lake Tahoe, and that's where you're going, but Lake Tahoe, Lake Tahoe. But if it's something else, give us the something else in the chat room. We'll shout you out. We'll give you a thumbs up, all that good stuff. And tell us where you're calling from as well. So Napa. Oh, that is a great Jennifer Worthington is going to Napa. It's a little hot up there, just so you know.
It's a little hot. Glamping at Yosemite. Yes, please. Boston and Florence, St. Lucia. God.
All right.
I'm trying not to be bitter.
And yes, the all-in pod is coming back. Breaking news.
I saw the tweets.
Breaking news.
Was it the photo? It was that photo that you posted. The nice reminder about how fun it was. I did a lot of mental storytelling about your Insta story.
It's creative tensions. I'll just leave it at that. But so much for the fucking NDA, boys. we're under NDA, and these guys are just going wild reading.
It was a bit of a chaotic morning for me. I'll be honest with you.
What's that?
I was a little all over the place this morning.
Emotionally?
I was getting pulled in group chats, kicked out of group chats. I was getting mentioned. I'm like, what is going on right now?
It was a little, it's gotten a little
glad. Well, I'm happy to be back.
It's going to be a buck wild episode. I'll tell you that much. I'll tell
Gang's back together.
The band's back together. Okay, band's back together.
Good. All right, start the show. Come on.
That's great.
The show.
God help me.
Wait, hold on.
Kidding.
Here's the
Notion.
Great. Okay, here we go. Oh wait, you know what? I had the Notion page up, and then I put up the lyrics to "You'll Be Back."
I also want to go to the U.S. Open. I love tennis. I love.
Wait, where is that?
Tennis. The one in New York. It's in New York in August and September.
Oh, okay. I can probably work that out.
It's the best. I saw this incredible Federer Monfils match one year. The only time I've been to the U.S. Open, and it was like a 6-hour match. Like it was just an epic. Went all night. I was like, this is the greatest thing ever.
I've never been, but that's a big corporate thing, and I know the corporates pretty well. So, to my corporate peeps, can we get a J-Cal Molly hookup? Somebody ping me offline.
We'll behave.
What's that?
We'll behave. We will not act like we did at the Warriors game. We will,
or not, or we'll
be appropriate for tennis, or we'll just stand up and cheer because it's New York.
I think my behavior and your behavior at a Warriors game will get you kicked out of the Open, right?
Yeah, for sure.
For sure, right? You can't yell. You have to be totally quiet.
You can't be standing up screaming. Yeah, you gotta. I mean, you can clap and yell at times, but then
are you
have
allowed
to be quiet
stand
when you're supposed to be quiet
and cheer? Like if somebody, do people? Okay,
yeah.
Like we were standing the whole time.
I know.
People behind us were like, down in front. I was like, when Steve Kerr sits down, I'll sit down. Okay.
And then Evan Spiegel was in front of us all like, is this how you act at basketball games? And we're like, yeah, buddy. When you like basketball, this is how you act.
He was he's pretty introverted, I think. Like he was very, or maybe he just doesn't like
self-contained. Maybe he doesn't like basketball.
He's a little quiet on the quiet side. Okay, here we go.
Yeah. All right.
In 3, 2.
Hey, everybody. Happy Wednesday. The show is back. The show has not left. Wednesday. There was no doubt about this show.
No doubt about this show. It's always been on track. All right. Today, we're going to kick off with a discussion about TikTok and surveillance. Some news has broken by BuzzFeed that the team, 3, 2. All right. We're going to start off today's show with a discussion about TikTok. BuzzFeed had a scoop of 80 leaked audio tapes where people at Oracle and consultants and the team at TikTok USA were complaining about the fact that they have not locked down TikTok yet from the Chinese version parent company. And so it's a bit of a mess. And I told you so.
And Twitter, in some quick news hits today, what's going on in the tech world, Twitter and Shopify just announced a partnership to open up a new sales channel for merchants. We'll talk about what this means for both of those companies and shopping.
Okay. Yeah, catching up to Instagram. And speaking of e-commerce, apparently Amazon is forecasting it's going to run out of workers in some of the cities it operates in. Maybe we need to talk about immigration again.
I mean, right? We will
need people.
Talk about that because we need either bodies or robots, one or the other.
Let's go. Both.
Both. And unfortunately or not, depending how you feel about your sidewalks, Lime is shutting down some operations in South Korea, blaming local governments for not providing proper structure.
Or it could be a broken business model. The unit economics are terrible. Either one. But, you know, why point fingers at yourself? And our We Live in the Future segment is back with Voice Mod AI, which lets users change their voices in real time. What could go wrong, Molly?
I mean, you took the modified voice words right out of my mouth.
Yes.
What could go wrong? It's going to be a great show.
So stick with us. All right, there we go. Huh? How's that? Is that professionalism? Look how professional Molly is. I'm tripping over my lines. Molly's just nailing them. I'm a little sloppy sometimes. Okay, here we go. 3, 2. Okay, everybody. Apparently, we're going to need to talk about TikTok again.
Yes, still. again. There has been, of course, a bunch of reporting, a bunch of speculation. What do Chinese authorities have access to? What does ByteDance have access to when you're using TikTok? TikTok, of course, claims that all user data is on U.S. users is stored in the U.S. And of course, TikTok continues to expand its influence in the Western world. It's up to 1.6 billion monthly active users, which is a lot. It has cemented itself, I think, as the competition to Facebook, Twitter, even YouTube. YouTube, which is very unlike YouTube, actually created a new product, the Shorts product, to compete with TikTok and keep users on its platform, and so on and so forth. Now, let's talk about TikTok's influence in the US.
Yeah.
And whether it is or is as influential or even more influential in American politics than Facebook. TikTok, of course, is a Chinese company operating in the US and worldwide. China, as a reminder, basically blocked Google and Facebook. So as Jason has pointed out many times, this is an asynchronous relationship. TikTok operates here. American social networks do not operate in China.
Yeah, it's one way. There's no reciprocity here. We are not allowed to have our apps in China.
Yep. They are behind the Great Firewall. U.S. lawmakers have tried to insist that TikTok has to keep its U.S. data in the U.S., and TikTok has said that it makes every effort to do so. However, there is some recent reporting from BuzzFeed News based on internal company audio from 80 leaked meetings.
80.
Saying, and it seems that the bulk of these meetings were about how to do this and efforts to do this in the wake of the timing in this article is a little unclear, but it seems to be in the wake of the Trump administration preparing executive orders saying that TikTok would have to be banned. They were like, oh crap, okay, we're going to.
Yeah, we did a little saber rattling. Trump did a little saber rattling, something I agree with him on. And then you remember the US version said they would move the data to Oracle's cloud or something like that. Microsoft was going to put in a bid to buy it, et cetera. At the same time, India banned it and banned other Chinese apps because they're smart and they understand trade. For some crazy reason, we're not letting them in here. But what really stuck out to me here was all of the back doors. So if you read this story, basically all of the tools and all of the monitoring and the management systems of TikTok were written by the Chinese parent company. The people in the US sound like bumbling idiots who have no idea how any of this works and where the data is and who's seeing it. And the people at Oracle and the consulting firms that work with them are kind of saying, listen, we're just giving you raw hardware. It's up to you to put the software on it, which means they have no insight. And you have to wonder, developers are very principled people. This is 80 meetings. So they're 80 meetings into this process. Mm-hmm. And if they were doing 2 meetings a week, this is like a year's worth of meetings or so. Because that's what I would think the cadence would be here. Yeah. Somebody is very concerned about this internally. Enough that they would risk taping all these meetings and leaking them. Mm-hmm. That to me seems like a major red flag, like major red flag. The fact that some principled person who is not going to get any financial gain from doing this and could be in the crosshairs of the Chinese government, which is no joke, and the U.S. and the companies, and could be sued for damages, all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And who knows? It could be one of the consultings at the consulting firms, or it could be Oracle. It could be anybody in these groups, but I have a feeling it's somebody inside of TikTok itself here in the U.S.
I'm going with Facebook spy, if I'm being honest. And here's why.
Facebook spy? How would they get into the meeting?
Well, maybe they went to work for Facebook, or maybe, we're planning to. I don't really know. But here's what I do. Here's what I do know.
Okay.
One, and this does it. Although I have defended BuzzFeed reporting, mm-hmm. because recently. They have it recently, and they do, and they have done some good reporting. This story, as it unfolded, right? Mm-hmm. Like this story, as it begins, makes it sound like, oh crap, the all U.S. user data has been flowing freely, and that's just that. And all these tools have a backdoor built into them. The end.
Yeah.
And then as the reporting unfolds, it becomes clear that these meetings were all about attempting to secure U.S. user data, which is a good thing.
Yes.
That turned out to be a slightly difficult process.
Very difficult.
Very difficult. But in the recordings, the vast majority of situations, and I'm reading from this story, which is way down in the middle, quote, in the recordings, the vast majority of situations where China-based staff accessed U.S. user data were in service of Project Texas's aim to halt this data access, meaning that they were testing in service of making sure that that wasn't happening.
Right.
So that's like buried way down halfway through.
Okay.
And most of the recorded meetings focus on TikTok's response to these concerns. I don't know why someone leaked this. I do think that there is some concern about whether TikTok in China, whether this user data is being accessed in China. I also think that the user data that Facebook and Google, and to some extent Twitter, but much less, are harvesting and using in completely non-transparent ways is equally terrible. And it feels to me a little convenient that these stories are all of a sudden starting to appear at the moment when like Meta's growth has been, or revenue growth, at least revenue has been flat for however long now, when this is like the
stock price
real
has gone down, but
competitor.
revenue's been okay. They're still throwing
Revenue's
up a lot of
been
money.
great, but the stock price is flat.
Yeah, and the earnings it's been down. Yeah, they lost 5 years worth of growth, and the earnings have gotten a lot of headwinds because of the Apple changes. That's fair enough. And they also have been investing so much. Yeah,
I'm just not sold. I'm honestly like, I'm having this really weird feeling where I'm just not sold on the red scare that is TikTok when I know that it benefits companies that are frankly just as harmful.
Okay,
from what we can tell so far when it comes to user data.
Let me help you become scared. let me pull you back from this space that you've gone to, because I understand why you're there. Yeah, this is a dangerous space. Because Facebook has been a bad actor, and I have been super critical of the firm, as have you, as has anybody who's just objectively looked at their behavior. And so we look at their behavior. They collect too much information. They have been laissez-faire with it. They have done horrible things. Cambridge Analytica, was that the name of that scandal? Yep. I mean, all these different scandals have piled up over the years. So yes, you're correct in not trusting Facebook. But understand, the CIA, FBI, Republican Party, etc., as much as they've tried to get their keys to the kingdom, they had to use third-party tools to get that information. They got caught with significant blowback to Facebook, congressional hearings, or legislation, the EU stomping on them, Apple then reducing their ability to track their customer base. In other words, their bad behavior resulted in the entire climate of anti-tech and specifically anti-social media here in the US and all that regulation.
Yeah.
Now let's go to China. They have unfettered access to all this data, just like they have Didi's data, just like they have Alibaba's data, just like they removed the CEO of Alibaba, just like they delisted. So when you look at what our government is doing, our government is investigating and holding Facebook and others feet to the fire, as is the EU to an even stronger degree. China is doing the opposite. They're taking over the companies. They're downloading the data sets. They're incorporating them into their giant mass surveillance. And you need only look at how they treat their own people, whether it's the Uyghurs or the tracking of anybody who might support any kind of dissent in that country. People who sell books that they don't like in Hong Kong, being sent to the mainland to be re-educated, which means starved, tortured, raped, and beaten. All of those re-education things that are occurring, all of that activity, it stands in stark contrast to what happens to bad behavior here in the US. Should we be stronger? Should we get control of these companies? Sure, there's arguments to be made. Are we doing it retroactively? Of course we are. That's how the justice system works. You're innocent until proven guilty, and getting proven guilty takes years, if not decades, in corporate America. It's imperfect, this system, but we have an existential risk here. If the Chinese government, and there's a New York Times story that dropped today about all the different provinces, and we'll get into that, and what the granularity at which they are tracking their own citizens. They're tracking what apps are on their phone. They're tracking their faces. They're connecting their faces to the apps. They're connecting what they wear. They're connecting where they go, all into a database that the police have unfettered access to, and the police and obviously everybody in the government. if they're doing that to their own people, the second they had the chance to do it to their greatest adversary, the United States, they would do it. And all is fair in spying. They will get all of this data from a senator's son or daughter, a senator's husband or wife or cousin, and they will get the compromat. They will compromise anybody at any time to achieve their goals. And that's why we need to immediately ban TikTok from the United States until such time as they reciprocate and Twitter and Facebook are allowed to be in their country. Period. Full stop. That is my belief. And that is what you should believe too, Molly. As much as you hate Facebook, you must come around to my way of thinking. This is a really communist country. You cannot give people the benefit of the doubt. These are sadistic maniac actors. You should look at them no differently than Mohammed bin Salim honestly, in Saudi Arabia, who chopped up journalists. These are the same people.
I'm not convinced that Palantir isn't in the same camp. Like, I'm just not.
Sorry, I just spit out my my cherry coke. Okay,
Boom.
I can guarantee you Palantir has not dismembered a journalist or put 1 million people into concentration camps and had them pick cotton in the north of China.
Look,
okay? This is a completely different scale. The what do they call that? The whataboutism? Is that the term when you conflate two different things that should not be conflated? This is textbook whataboutism, Molly. We have to get past this. The long list of things we do wrong here in the United States is in no way comparable to genocide or chopping up a journalist. Palantir could be evil in your mind, but they're not chopping up a journalist. They're not putting 1 million people in a concentration camp, Molly.
Yeah. Okay, I get it.
I'm sorry, I'm so upset about this, but
no, I mean, this
happens every time I talk about human rights. There is a spectrum here.
There is a spectrum. There is a continuum.
There's a continuum. That's the word. Thank you.
And there is also manipulation of information to achieve certain aims, right? Like we will take our eye off the ball if we're like TikTok is the great evil, when in fact we have metadata. We have so much of the same information collection, data collection by the United States government, by cell phone providers, by Clearview AI, which is embedded in lots of police departments. And frankly, the fact that we don't chop up journalists now, right? Like all of this is abstract until it's not. And we're allowing all of the same data collection with the assumption that the United States government, our law enforcement are all going to continue to be good actors in the world. And we don't know that that is the case. And the United States has perpetrated some pretty serious human rights abuses too on the border in terms of separating children from their parents. Like I am definitely not trying to downplay the concern of these regimes that are truly evil. But I am saying that any regime can end up there and that we're not, and I'm not going to pretend that somehow what is happening at TikTok, and frankly, what these tapes really show from a reporter, by the way, who like then full disclosure was like, I used to work for Facebook, is that TikTok internally seems to be trying really hard to shut off this flow of data. That's what these tapes really say. And to make sure that it's not happening, and it's unclear whether it's happening, but that they're trying to shut it off. So like, I don't want to focus so much on TikTok
Unpack
that
the
I
part
ignore.
about the Facebook thing. Yeah, we gotta pull up that disclosure. That I was a little concerned about as well. Like,
right, like you see that in there, and you're just like, wait, what?
She worked in policy. Did she work at Facebook previously? This reporter, because we invited her on the show, by the way. And she was going to come on.
Yes,
and she's
disclosure in the part, by the way, where it says that. Again, the vast majority of situations where China-based staff access to U.S. user data were in service of the aim to halt the data access. Disclosure, in a previous life, I held policy positions at Facebook and Spotify.
Got it. Okay. So she's a policy person who's now a journalist.
Policy.
Yeah, policy. I got it. And so
like, I don't,
your thesis here is
I'm not disqualifying her at all.
I
I'm
wonder
just
if
saying
she still owns her Facebook stock.
Right? Like, I'm just saying these stories are popping up at the exact time that TikTok represents an existential threat to Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. Like I just, I don't, there's something about the propaganda part of this.
Why would BuzzFeed allow her to do this story? Why wouldn't they assign the story to somebody who didn't work previously at Facebook? Like,
I mean,
wouldn't they just say to her, listen, it's great that you got the scoop.
Yeah.
We're going to have somebody else do it so that your fingerprints aren't on it.
I think if you do it and disclose it, but disclose it at the top of the story. Like you can't do it.
How far down is that? Let's see.
I
What
mean,
paragraph
let's
is
see.
it
I'm
in?
like,
I mean, I know
scroll,
we're getting
scroll,
into the
scroll.
weeds here, but I do think that is very pertinent what paragraph it's in. Somebody just tell me it's fifth, sixth paragraph.
No, it's like
Most people read
more.
the first 2 or 3 paragraphs in these stories.
Okay,
Just
so
so you know.
let's see.
They don't go
1,
below
2,
the fold.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
Eh.
8, 9. I mean, it's like 25. It's like 25. It's like paragraph 25.
No, really?
Oh yeah.
That is dark.
I mean,
Okay.
I lost
BuzzFeed
count.
gets
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I mean, if it's not in the first 3 paragraphs, it's
I'm sorry.
maybe
It's
maybe
8.
8.
It's 8.
Okay, it's 8. Okay, so I would say that's a huge fail. Hold on one second. I just got to turn off my air purifier. That went off.
Okay, you can't really hear it.
If you're a nodie that is looking, you can see how far down it is in terms of the relative.
It's 8. You're right. I like how to scroll fail. It's 8 paragraphs in. Notice.
That's a nice graphic, though.
Okay, and 3, 2. Sorry about that, everybody. I have these air purifiers that go on if they detect smoke and or whatever odors, and there's been fires in California already.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me, Molly? Okay, 3, 2. All right, if it's in the 8th paragraph, that's a complete
It's in the
fail.
8th paragraph.
That is so dumb. On whoever the editor at BuzzFeed is, like, you guys need to have a meeting about this. This is 2 very stupid decisions. 1, she should not be allowed to write the story. She should have handed it off. Number 2, Molly's correct. It should be up top, or you should have put a second journalist on it and then just disclose this in the top. But what a terrible editorial decision, I think.
And I mean, look, maybe it's
really
fine,
bad.
But it's just
the appearance of impropriety is something you have to always avoid in journalism, finance, whatever. You just never want to be in this position. This is why, like, anytime I'm talking about Lyft or DoorDash, I'd say, oh yeah, listen, I still own some shares of Uber. If I'm talking about, Robinhood, hey, I still own some shares of Robinhood, like, specifically. I don't own shares of Palantir. And I sold my Facebook shares, which I think was seems like an okay trade now. When I sold them in the $110, $120 range, I think I had Facebook shares through a company they bought that I was a shareholder in. And I just didn't want to hold Facebook because I felt bad about it. But anyway, let's go on to the second story here, because at the same time this is dropping, we find out in the New York Times story that the Chinese government is investing massively in surveillance. There is no doubt in my mind that whatever we know is but 10, 20, 30% of what's going on. I think you would agree with that premise. If we have, okay. And if you've ever seen or know about the Stasi, or if you've seen the movie The Lives of Others, highly recommend. This would be a weekend movie you will love. Absolutely fantastic. When you see the level authoritarian governments go to spy on their own citizens, because that is the only way to maintain control. You will have revolutions and rebels and all kinds of stuff will emerge. Information and squashing things early is sadly the best technique. This New York Times investigation tracked down over 100,000 Chinese government's RFPs. If you don't know what an RFP is, that's a request for proposal. This is a document that says, hey, here's what we're looking to buy. So when we did the conference in Miami, we put out an RFP. We're looking for event producers to do 3 different themed parties. Here's what we're looking for. Here's what we want to pay. Here's how many people are going. This is our budget, whatever it is. And then people can, you basically send them the RFP so they don't have to ask you 20 questions. You're giving them the 20 answers. Okay. These documents were directly from the government themselves. This is the government putting out publicly on their websites what they wanted, because I guess in China, like in the United States, you put these RFPs out publicly so everybody gets a chance to bid on them. So theoretically, the government gets the best price. So a group that watches Chinese behavior collected these before they were taken down and got them to the New York Times, I guess. And the requests were stunning. The government wanted camera installations in apartment buildings, hotel lobbies, malls, with facial recognition technology and the ability to match your social media accounts with your phone and with these photos. So an example was all of mainland China's regions use these phone trackers to map citizens' activity daily. If we allow TikTok in the United States, I can assure you the government knows where any senator, any FBI agent, CIA agent, law authority, Department of Justice, attorney, or any child of a president or vice president or secretary of state where they are. Now, if you know where the child of a secretary of state is, you probably, or a Navy SEAL, let's say, you're going to know where the Navy SEAL is. And Navy SEALs are a pretty big asset, and hits were put out on Navy SEALs.
I mean, you actually already know that from Strava. If we allow Verizon in the United States to gather metadata on every citizen with absolutely no transparency or rules, then
we do have rules, but
freaking trivial for a Chinese spy to access that information, go to work for that company, right? Like, I'm just saying that as a person who keeps this on my desk as like a Bible, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism by Shoshana Zuboff, like, data collection is massively dangerous and terrifying, and is happening in the United States within companies at almost the exact same rate.
We'll absolutely concede.
And I hope that we never end up under an authoritarian government, but I don't know that we won't. And frankly, I don't want our entire, like, all our manipulation so far is just like to get us to buy stuff.
Now, as scary as the possibility you describe is, Molly, now imagine it's the reality. Because it is. Right now, the Chinese government has access to all of this TikTok stuff. I guarantee it. Just, dollars to donuts, 100%. They've got all this. And who knows what else they've hacked. So the question is, do you want them to have this in real time? Yes, of course, they could send spies out to follow somebody or tail somebody. They could compromise somebody's phone. They could jailbreak it.
Collection, to be clear, I am not arguing for data collection.
Right.
I am arguing against data collection, but I'm also arguing against easy villains.
Well, okay.
And I'm not even saying China, like
I don't think they're an easy villain. I just think they're a villain. Like,
China may be. We don't know if TikTok is. We know that there's 100%. A lot of protectionism built in.
The Americans working at TikTok are traitors. Any American working at TikTok is a goddamn traitor.
Wow.
And they should quit now. I am 100% dead serious. If you work for that company, you are a traitor. There's a reason why we're trying to get them to dismantle the data set, and there's a reason Trump did that saber rattling. If you work there, I hope the money is amazing for you to give all of our children's data, all of this control, and let's not even get into the algorithm and how it's programming our children and the detrimental effect, giving them the ability to turn some dials and make the algorithm show things that, I don't know, maybe talk about things that in America are very divisive.
That is already happening on YouTube and Facebook. And you know where I've seen that happen to my child? On YouTube. You know where I haven't seen it happen to my child? On TikTok.
Oh, no, it happens on TikTok too. But the question is, as bad as that is, now give the remote control, give those dials, give that control to the Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party. This thing has to be stopped. Now, going deeper into the rabbit hole of this New York Times story, 25 out of the 31 provinces have DNA databases of their citizens.
Yeah.
Quoting the New York Times, DNA, iris scan samples, and voice prints are being collected indiscriminately from people with no connection to crime. China is doing massive domestic surveillance on a level not seen in the history of humanity for incredibly nefarious reasons. We are doing it probably second only to them, and we're doing it for capitalistic reasons. And Europe is pumping the brakes on it, and we're pumping the brakes on it here too, obviously. Some of it is voluntarily, and some of it is for competition reasons, like Apple versus Facebook. But we really need to get our heads together on this issue. We need to understand that our rival China is a very serious rivalry. India has taken a very savvy approach of blocking these apps. We need to 100% block these apps forever. Either spin the company out and make it a standalone company and get the profits from it. Whatever ByteDance wants to do, they can get their shareholders a release, make it a U.S. company with a U.S. board, data. And then, sure, more data controls for U.S. companies. Absolutely. All of that, yes. And.
I will just not find it. I mean, I'm sorry. I will not find it credible if we ban TikTok and don't reform data collection in the United States. I just won't. I don't think that's credible.
I think these two things.
I mean, Palantir is doing data collection. Or DNA collection, rather. Like literally letting people upload more. I mean, it's mostly global in nature, but it is happening.
Are they doing that really? Like people opting into it?
No, it's allowing, let's see. It was mostly in Like they allowed members of the military in Iraq and other countries to upload DNA samples from remote locations to collect fingerprints and DNA evidence. All right, it's not the same. They're not doing it to the same degree.
Got it.
I'm just saying I don't find it credible to like say this one thing has to go and everything else that United States companies and our government are doing can remain the same.
Oh, I think it's an end, but I think one is 100 times more.
But the more we demonize the one, the less we make it an and.
No, I think it is. No,
it offers us an easy out to say we're not as bad as them. And even if it's true, it does offer us an easy out.
I think the opposite. I think if we describe exactly what they have access to and why it's dangerous, then people immediately go, okay, what about YouTube? And you say, okay, yes, let's drill down into what YouTube is doing. Let's drill down into what Facebook is doing. And then, and YouTube is Google. Google has a transparency report on all of the government subpoenas it gets. They fight them and they report them, right? Unless there's like one category they don't report on, which is I think the FISA ones where they're not allowed to report that a FISA has been given because that would tip off the terrorist. But I think that's only for a short period of time. And that's like a very senior level judge that can do like a FISA thing. And it's like a whole panel. It's a real rigmarole to do a private subpoena like that or tracking. Mm-hmm. But anyway, this is really just, and for the people who work at TikTok, shame on you. Shame on you. Wow. Like, how could you work for a Chinese company that's doing this?
That went up a notch quickly. Sorry.
I think the people have to own their own behavior. That's it. Period, full stop. I feel the same way, about, I'm not saying I don't want to see relations occur between these countries.
I mean, what is the end game of the idea that if you work with the Chinese, you're traitors?
For this specific company, I'm saying it's reciprocity and the data. So if this country has a track record of stealing data, if these engineers can't figure out what's even going on with the software, and we know that they're tracking our kids, have access to their photo albums. I mean, this is like a really existential risk.
To be fair, they do not have a proven track record of taking this data.
I said
we're assuming that they do.
The Chinese Communist Party does.
Oh yeah, they definitely do.
They were upfront about it. Like, we're going to do security. We're doing. They shut Didi off.
But would you really want Facebook to be operating in China, knowing how much data Facebook has about everybody, like 2 billion people on Earth? Like, I wouldn't.
Well, there would be an argument to be made in the issue of national security. In the issue of national security, I have to think that through. There are two things: the spread of democracy and information, and people having access to free information and free expression. It would be pretty hard to stop Twitter and Facebook from people having this sort of freedom. The thing it would cause, if the servers and the data was local, is Facebook and Twitter and Google would have to hand over dissidents to be tortured, raped, murdered, and beaten. Re-educated. The umbrella known as re-education in China. So this is why Yahoo left, I think, and a lot of people left, and why Google didn't enter.
But a lot of because they didn't want to. Apple didn't leave. Tesla didn't leave. Like, how far is this going to go? I'm just saying, watch it with these things. How far is this going to go? We do have deep business relations. I'm sorry, the NBA.
It's the data.
Is arguably a wholly owned entity of China at this point, and so is Hollywood. So
building widgets and data are two different things.
Movies.
So, I just think that the data and building widgets are two different things. Like an Amazon Basics cable or an iPhone or a Tesla is like a different thing than everybody's data and their photo library.
Isn't economic control, frankly, more powerful in some ways? I mean, look at the capitulation that we have seen to China from the NBA, from Hollywood, from
maybe the opposite. China
that wrestler guy or whatever.
Yeah. And then the opposite.
Maybe, but Apple is not out John Cena. Apple's not out here pissing off China either.
They've had a pretty contentious relationship at times, like the treatment of workers and the suicide stuff. Like, Apple kind of held them to a higher standard. So I think that's the argument people are making in favor of engagement, is that, then everybody's kind of got to meet in the middle on their beliefs. And then, there's the compromising nature of it, and then there's national security. So all these things are going on at the same time.
Economics are national security.
Of course they are, but the data of all these individuals, like the scale of the data collection is truly, truly terrifying.
If I wanted to break a country, I would do it with economics, not data.
You probably use every resource you have, so I don't disagree. I mean,
sure.
we broke Russia with.
Then I don't think you can have the one without the other. I mean, Russia maybe arguably broke us with data or propaganda, but
they definitely attempted that. Yeah, we'll see if we withstand it. But also we broke them with these sanctions. Obviously, like their economy is really got challenges now and going forward with everybody pulling out of it. So, it's. I think in a war, everybody will use every option. And I think this is an option we don't want them to have, which is why India said, no bueno with you having the product here in our country, period, full stop. And reciprocity is a way of kind of enforcing it without banning it. It's just like, okay, there's always an option here. And so it's your question, like, why reciprocity? It's kind of a principle thing. Hey, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and so we should all play by the same rules.
All right. Good talk. Right.
We'll have to agree to disagree. I'm sorry I got a little spicy.
Good talk. I love it. Are you kidding? Get spicy.
Well, listen, I'm not. I don't disagree with any of your points about
Are we cool?
No, I'm disappointed in you. I'm very disappointed. No, I'm joking. No, I mean everybody's gonna. This is not a. I don't think the.
I'm disappointed in you as my new
very
favorite.
Disappointed in you. No, I'm so disappointed. I think that this is the thing we have to think about as Americans: is when is engagement productive and when is reciprocity and holding the line appropriate. For me, if I'm the NBA, I'm thinking, great, if people love LeBron James and they wear Steph Curry's jersey or whatever it is, and they that's great for building a fabric between the two countries. We both enjoy the same thing. If they love Tom Cruise movies, great. But if an American has to bend the knee, like they when asked Daryl Morey to do,
when we literally edit Taiwan out of movies or out of posters.
Ridiculous. Yeah, that's ridiculous. So that's where you have to hold the line, I think. And this, I think, is a hold the line moment. You can't hold the line on everything or else it's just going to be some things you have to negotiate, some things you have to hold the line on. I think India's done a pretty good job with it. They're holding the line on the app being there, but I'm sure they do plenty of trade with China as well.
Yeah.
So I think this is one of those situations where we absolutely must hold the line, period, full stop. All right, let's keep going. Speaking of Amazon.
All right. Speaking of
lots going on here. So,
all right, let's talk about a couple quick hits on e-commerce here.
Look, can we go to Amazon one? I think that's the most important.
Straight to Amazon. Yeah.
I think so. Only because we were talking about this in the chat and stuff like that. I have a friend who is secretly working inside of Amazon. Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. He's working as an Amazon warehouse worker. I'm not going to say anything else about it.
All right.
Secretly working inside of
Hopefully this person will come on the show.
I invited them too. And I invited them to do it, behind like a voice modulator or something.
Oh, well, we have an app for that coming up in a little bit here. Yeah. All right. So Amazon, speaking of Amazon, but also leaks.
Yeah.
One of Amazon's leaked memos from 2021, and this is just fascinating, said that the company was actually in danger of running out of people to hire in U.S. warehouses by 2024. The report, according to Vox's Recode, warned that Amazon's labor crisis was especially imminent in locales like Phoenix, the Inland Empire region of California, and Los Angeles, and that they could literally not have enough people to hire to staff their huge warehouses.
Makes absolute sense to me. Americans are doing better than ever in terms of their ability to spend on this kind of stuff. They become addicted to it. And yeah, I mean, there are people who work at Amazon and then are going home and buying from Amazon. It's just such a delightful experience to get whatever you want, whenever you want. I now have like a new philosophy of stuff, which is like, I can just order, like when something breaks or whatever, I'm just like, I can just order that and have it here the same day or the next day. It's totally changed my behavior. What same day delivery or next day delivery has done. The whole concept of 2-day delivery is like 2 days. I'm outraged when I'm in Tahoe and it takes 2 days or 3 days. I'm like, what? I need a new pair of socks and you're saying I have to wait 2 days? I need new socks. I got them the same day. I was like, I need new socks for mountain biking. The same day the socks came. I was like, this is getting weird,
It is. Well, and it's, I guess I mean, it's interesting because on the one hand, it's a labor story like, oh no, we don't have enough people to hire. But the truth is that what we don't have is enough people to staff a complete sea change in consumer expectation. Right?
Yeah, that's actually
is
the way
that
to
what
say
you're
it.
saying?
Eloquently said, yes.
Because if we've changed the entire way that this is not how commerce has ever operated.
No.
And apparently it's massively labor intensive.
Well,
and there just are not enough warm bodies.
I mean, let's be honest. How many
boxes,
how many Amazon orders a week are you doing in your household?
Like between 5 and 10, depending on the week.
Right. It's got to be.
There's some
got to be over 10
show
for us.
up.
Yeah. It's got to be 10 for us. You know, we have 3 kids here. So I mean, it's 10 for us. You know, you just extrapolate that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, some weeks it might be 3 or 4, but it's, 5 to 10. Everything comes by Amazon now. It's like you said, subscribe and save for your favorite coffee or whatever, your shampoo, whatever your jam is.
Shampoo, all of it.
All of it's on subscribe and save. Stuff is just constantly coming. It's coming so fast now that I am actually doing the Amazon day so that I get fewer boxes, because now the amount of boxes and the act of opening boxes, which used to be a joyful moment in people's lives, has now become the thing that's annoying. We are so entitled that breaking down boxes has become the annoying thing. I literally have, here it is. I literally have this on my desk. This is like a ceramic. It's a ceramic box opener.
Oh, that's fancy.
It's awesome. And it's like, again, you can order on Amazon for like $6. But this thing, you know why I have this? Because we get so many goddamn boxes in this house. It's like a UPS facility that it fills the recycle box. So now I break down the boxes. So I sit there like I'm working at Walmart or, Trader Joe's, and I'm a clerk, and I spend, one day a week breaking down boxes, because there's other people who live in my house who take the boxes and throw them in to the recycle, which means 4 boxes and it's full.
They don't break them down?
They don't break them down.
You can't.
So I'm the breakdown guy. I'm training people. I bought a 3-pack of these, and I put them in strategic locations because they'll hang like on a hook. So
those are amazing, and I should totally get that. And that's a much more humane thing than we have, because we have these little like karambit things that we call the claw, which are these insane curved knives.
Are you nuts? Look at that thing. Oh my God.
My son went through this little like CSGO phase.
That looks like a raptor claw.
We've got like 3 of those. They're perfect for opening.
That's how many claws a raptor has per hand. It's 3.
Like, well, listen, I like my stuff to be multi-purpose. So I like to know that I could kill an intruder.
It is actually that would.
And then we shout, "Karambit!"
We're basically getting to the point where everybody's going to have a miniature raptor. These miniature ponies and miniature bulldogs, miniature whatever dogs. We should just use DNA sequencing to make mini raptors, and then you just take your mini raptor and you throw it into your recycling, and it just shreds the boxes for you. And then you feed it.
Right. That would be amazing. But could I use that on an intruder? That's my question. Yes, I could.
A raptor would be great for intruders.
I need a robot raptor, and Amazon needs more robots, because this is so interesting. Like, now that we're kind of breaking this down to its component parts and realizing that the problem is that we've created an economy that there aren't enough humans to staff. Yeah. This is not a shortage.
Yeah.
This is this is an existence problem. Not enough labor exists, possibly, to fuel this economy. And so then what is the question? Is it open the doors and allow immigration again, or robots, or both?
This is the problem with immigration. Is I've talked about this so many times. Like, people don't even know how many people come into the country by year. And so it has really dropped. I think we admitted just over 1 million the last couple of years, and it was 2 or 3 million, but it just keeps going down. So, it's pretty crazy. How few people we let in. And this is something that's one solution, is to let more people in. The other solution is automation, obviously. And they have a lot of automation going on there. The last mile obviously is a big one. So drones are going to help that. We talked about, we live in the future, the pneumatic tubes kind of concept, in cities, the tubes.
Very cool.
And then those little robots that look like R2-D2 that will just go 5 miles an hour to your house. Those are going to be helpful. Autonomy, full autonomous cars and delivery. That's all coming. So this does seem like a bridge issue. Anybody who has these jobs is not going to have them in 10 years. So this is a short-term pain problem. And here's the solution. Charge more. Pay more.
It's true. Because everything we've just said about how we're living in all of this delivery is terrible. It's actually consumerism run amok. It's the reason that the supply chains are so screwed up because we cannot stop buying stuff. And it is horrific. It is horrific in terms of carbon emissions.
It's terrible for the environment. I literally am on a jihad to stop my own consumption, and like literally metal straws, major part of it. Like,
look, I got my little silicone ones. I like them because they don't make as much noise.
And then I'm making iced tea. I'm making the chicory coffee cold brew, and I'm doing liquid IV instead of buying bottles of, whatever Gatorade or, Gatorade ice I used to buy. And now I use a liquid IV. Use a promo code TWIST.
I'm trying to integrate. Yeah, use a promo code TWIST. I'm trying to integrate very zero waste and less waste strategies into my life. It is a hard transition.
Well, here's the thing. I would one pump up. I don't know if Liquid IV does this, but now this is the same addiction. Humans are very addicted. You notice that, Molly? Like we get addicted to things. We have like a very weird addiction thing where like we have habits and we get into patterns and they're like repetitive. So I think what's happening is we've gotten into this loop with Amazon where we just keep ordering and ordering and ordering, and it releases dopamine, and we're just like in this habit. Then the reverse habit happens where you are like, okay, I'm going to try to not order stuff. So everything I'm doing now is trying to find the one pan that I will never have to replace again, or the boots. I talked about my Danner boots, or my Crockett and Jones shoes from London. They're $800 shoes. I've had them for now 10 years. I get them resold every 4, and the leather is so good that when you polish it up, I mean, I'm still wearing the same awesome shoes for almost 10 years now. I'm in shock, and they're still my favorite shoes. I mean, I was going through dress shoes like crazy when I was buying the cheaper ones, and this $800 pair, they're still rocking it. So now I started looking at the packets that the Liquid IV comes in, which is super convenient. I was like, I wonder if they offer like a mason jar, glass jar filled with this powder, so I could have 3 of those and just do a scooper. I'm totally fine with doing a scooper. I don't need the single pack. I mean, I do need a single packet when I'm traveling, which is fine. But I'm just going full on, no packaging, please. And we have that company we're working on, which we should have them on. That's in the incubator. We should have them on to talk about what they're doing at some point. Have they been on the pod yet?
We did. Yeah.
Oh, you interviewed them, right?
Yeah. She's been on.
What's the state of that company? Are they ready to launch something, or
spring? I think so. Yeah. They're a pilot in DC.
Got it.
Yeah.
I can't wait
I think
for that.
They're ready to. I just want that to exist so badly. Because it is very, I firmly believe that consumers will change behavior if they have a cool thing to buy. Tesla has proven that. Apple has proven, right? Like we've seen, but Beyond Meat, Impossible Burgers, all of those have proven that. But you have to have the thing. Like to ask any individual to go to the store and buy everything in bulk and put it in glass jars themselves and bring them and do it's just not credible. But to offer them that as a service, hell yeah. We're addicted to that. We will definitely subscribe to that.
Well, and then there's the habit. And so how could you make the habit? I'm really getting into habits now. And you just have to if you can really work this loop in your favor. So like I'm doing that with my schedule where I'm time blocking stuff, where I'm trying to get on the treadmill, listen to the stories for today's show while I'm on the treadmill in the morning. You see that when I'm going back and forth, just trying to get more into that loop, which I did with skiing this year, where I was like, okay, these 4 days a week, I'm going to ski during this window, move my meetings. If you can get yourself in that loop, I guess there's like all these books about habit that talk about this, where you just schedule it and then just
there's some amount of days, right? It's like 21 days.
Yeah, there's something where your brain
21 days, it'll be a
creates a habit. Yeah. So anyway, I think it's one of the things we have to think about with these companies and getting into a habit. The other thing I'm thinking about is when do I replace my cars? So I replace my cars when I like the new features and I want them. So it's not actually my choice.
Yeah.
It's kind of when somebody dangles enough out there and I'm like, okay, I've now had the Y for a while, had the X for a while, 6-7 years for the X, I think. And then the Y I've had for 2 or 3 years. And I'm like, I'm going to get the new one. I'm going to get the plaid. I'm going to get this. And I'm like, should I do that or not for the environment? Should I try to get to 10 years? Should I try to, and I was at one point in my life, I was like, I'm going to get a new car every 3 years and somebody else can drive my 3-year-old car with 20,000 miles on it and, just be like a luxury I could have. Now I'm just like, I don't know that I want that luxury as opposed to the joy, because I'm starting to feel joy by consuming less and getting more value out of things. Isn't that weird?
No, it's not. I think it's not at all. It's like that is so profound because that's values changing. And when values change, behavior changes. And I feel the same way. I'm like so proud of myself whenever I'm very into, we were talking about this yesterday in our investment meeting, the circular economy and circularity, the idea of putting stuff into circulation for reuse. I do my Rent the Runway thing. I'm trying to buy used clothes, used furniture. There's all these resale, like re-commerce is a huge consumer trend.
I like the
and it's all about changing values. And it's awesome. There's really good shit out there that people aren't using anymore. It's amazing.
I'm now doing this. I bought this fancy mountain bike for my summer hobby, and it's a little embarrassing, but I spent $9,000 on an electric mountain bike.
Yeah,
I literally bought the best one because here's what I thought.
I'm like, yeah, that's kind of standard.
Well, no, it was shocking to me.
Great bikes,
shocking to me. But I said to myself, I'm going to get the best one. I looked at the resale value. I can resell this specialized bike for like whatever, call it 6 or 7K of the 9. So then I said, okay, if I can resell it for 6, that means it's actually costing me 3 for the next 2 years or something like that. If I can do 100 rides, it's $30 a ride. I go to lunch, I spend $30. This is for my health and it's more exciting. I go skiing, whatever. And then I just divide the cost by the number of times I use it. And then it reduces my anxiety of like a purchase like this. So I'm actually thinking, I'm factoring consumption in to everything I do.
Back of the envelope math. That's your jam.
That's kind of my jam. And so you'd be surprised what you can justify if you just say, hey, what's the resale value of these shoes? If I what's the recirculation thing?
Re-commerce and circularity. Circularity was the
word we were talking about. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Circularity is an amazing thing to me. If you just think about Amazon, do you ever buy used stuff on Amazon? I buy used books sometimes.
I think I've bought used books a couple times on Amazon, but
when I did buy
reducing my Amazon use is what makes me want to.
I did the books because they were out of print. I think was the issue when I did that.
Right, totally. I've done that too.
Not a big. Okay. Well, anyway, if you have stories or ideas around these kind of startups, or you're starting a startup, or you find one that's doing this, let us know because we would like to invest in them. Let's do a quick outro here for the show.
Let's do it tomorrow. Big show tomorrow.
Oh, it's a big show tomorrow? We're going big? Okay, here we go. Okay, 3, 2. All right, tomorrow, Lon Harris is back on the show for our This Week in Streaming segment. Cannot believe it. The anticipation of Obi-Wan for 2 years and for a lifetime wondering what happened between episodes 3 and 4 has come to an end. And I've watched episode 6, the finale of Obi-Wan. I am so excited for you, Molly, to watch it. I'm watching it again tonight with my daughters. And Molly is going to tomorrow also interview the founder and CEO of Capital RX, which is trying to, like Mark Cuban's company, trying to reinvent and lower the cost of drugs.
Hallelujah. And then on Friday, we have another recurring guest that you're going to love, an awesome one. Just stay tuned for this, Praying for Exits. If you're not already following Praying for Exits on Instagram, you should be. And of course, another OK Boomer.
Yes. And that's going to be a great interview. I actually had him on. I think we figured out who he is, but we're not going to spoil it. He runs Praying for Exits on Instagram, a hilarious account where he kind of takes the piss out of our industry, but in a good way, in an entertaining way. It's not vindictive or anything, but it's brutally candid. Amazing. And so it's only the second person we've ever had on anonymously. And we're having him on a second time because if you take it from the perspective of it's definitely an insider, maybe has an axe to grind, but he kind of has informed opinion. So if you go in with a low expectation, you find out the person's pretty well informed. I'm excited to do it with you, Molly. We're both going to do the interview tomorrow.
All right. And then if you have topics,
sorry.
I know totally. I found our meeting then, but I was going to
3, 2. And I cannot wait for you to hear my solo dolo interview, Molly. We're going solo dolo for the summer, so Molly and I can get a little time out and forgive us, but we're doing 6 shows a week. Can we get a little time in the mountains?
I'll be off praying for an exit, interviewing a founder. That's hopefully going to become our next big. So,
Praying for exits, yeah.
See what I did
so
there?
funny. And then OK Boomer from Rachel tomorrow too.
Always on Friday. And then if you have topics you want us to cover and you want to be where the pre-show action happens, join the Twist community on Twitter at thisweekinstartups.com/TC for Twitter community.
We got 1,200 members in this community, and we're going to start doing more there. We show up right around 3 or 4 o'clock every day to just peek in and say hi to everybody. You got questions for us? I want to do a call-in show where people call in for advice and do mentoring. I want to do more mentoring. So Jason mentors. This is different than Ask Jason. It's a new concept I want to do. Jason mentors somebody. And here's my theory, my thesis, Molly. I mentor them, and then we check back in with them 30 days later, 60 days later, and see if they took the mentoring. It's kind of like almost like a reality show, where I get inside somebody's head, give them almost like that.
Seems like there could be some potential there.
Could be. All right. We'll see you all tomorrow. Oh, and by the way, the URL is thisweekinstartups.com/TC, Twitter community. Thisweekinstartups.com/TC. It forwards you. Thank you for doing this, everybody on my team, to this Twitter community. It's got 1,200 members. But don't spam it. Talk about startups. Talk about the show. Stay focused. There's a bunch of mods in there. Thanks to our mods, Bob G, Surge Dog. So many great mods working with us on if you want to be a mod, just show up every day. Zen Profit at youtube.com/thisweekend, youtube.com/thisweekend. Hit the subscribe, hit the bell. You get an alert. I'm going to also do some random drops. I decided I have the YouTube password. So I may do some random drops where I just talk to the audience over the weekend if a breaking news story happens. So get ready for that too. Yeah. I'm in a creative mode right now.
You really are. I know. I love it.
I have ideas. I have ideas for new shows. I got my creative juices flowing. The summer's doing it to me.
He does not take summer off. Exactly.
I don't take any time off because this is not a job for me. This is like talking to you for an hour. I could talk to you for an hour every Saturday and Sunday and not put the cameras on. It'd be fine.
It's true. It's true.
We'll see you all.
All right. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Just a quick reintro because we cut some of the segments because we went long on TikTok. I put it right at the bottom of the outro.
Oh, hold on. I just closed my Notion. God damn it. Oh, no, wait, I didn't. There's my Notion. So, wait, where am I going for the...
If you just type in intro or intro and then scroll down.
I found the reintro. Okay, reintro. 3, 2.
Hey, everybody. It's Wednesday on This Week in Startups.
That's right. Today, we're going to kick it off with a discussion about TikTok and surveillance. Molly and I get into a bit of a debate about the risks and what we should be worrying about. And I have a message for employees of TikTok here in the USA.
He does. It's a little bit spicy. And then we're going to talk about labor. And apparently Amazon is forecasting it will run out of workers in some of the cities it operates in. We're going to talk about reasons and solutions like we do.
Yeah. And we talk a little bit about our addiction and then lowering our carbon footprints and our consumption footprints and this whole new genre of startups that are doing, what is it called? Circularity. It's not the singularity, it's a circularity. It's really an interesting concept. It's like an OK Boomer segment with Molly explaining this stuff to me. It's going to be a great show.
Stick with us.
All right.
Great. Thank you both.
Amazing.
That's a better intro. All right, everybody, give us a thumbs up. And
so we are actually going to do an interview right now. Jason, I'm going to jump off with you and record a bunch of ads, and Molly is going to do a solo interview.
Look at that. That is so efficient.
Yes, I'll do some ads. Okay. Bye-bye.
Hello, AJ. Just confirming.
Hi, AJ. Thanks for your patience.
No worries.
Your quick
Say a quick hi to Jason before he
scampers. Hey. Hi. Bye. Hey, bye.
All right. Let's get this one uploaded, and I will start a new one. Okay. Got that one. New QuickTime going.
Wonderful. And what's your QuickTime at, AJ?
7 minutes, 30 seconds, 17.9 megabytes.
Perfect.
Amazing. So precise.
And
I'm at 21, 22, 23 seconds.
Okay.
AJ, I'm so sorry that we are running a little late today.
No worries.
That's our guy. Jason. It's like he sees the words we should rap and then he takes it as a challenge. But anyway, this is going to be great. All right. And then if you wouldn't mind, could you go, I have Loiacono. Where's the emphasis go in pronouncing your last name?
Loiacono.
Loiacono. I had it. Nailed it. Excellent. Okay. Wonderful. Let's jump right in. Producers, you ready? I'm assuming yes.
We are good to go. And for the people listening, I just put
all good.
AJ's company URL in the chat. So feel free to check it out as we're talking.
All right. Wonderful. Here we go. 3, 2. All right. I am joined by AJ Loiacono, CEO of Capital RX, a pharmacy benefit manager that manages and negotiates prescription drug benefits, on behalf of large organizations. They just raised $106 million Series C, led by B Capital. And the mission is to, as I understand it, increase transparency in the prescription drug process and also improve patient outcomes, which I think we can all agree sounds great. Thank you for doing this. And welcome to the show, AJ.
Thank you so much for having me, Molly.
So tell me a little bit about how this works, like sort of high level. How do drugs get paid for? Where do pharmacy benefit managers sit? And what is the role there for people who don't understand any of this?
So let's take a step back. Let's kind of compare it to something that we all understand. So let's start at the very beginning. A pharmaceutical manufacturer begins to make a pallet of drugs, and they spend an afternoon, and there's, let's just say, a pallet sitting on a loading dock. And pharmaceutical manufacturers, these could be brand manufacturers like Pfizer or Merck, or these could be generic manufacturers like Teva. And what they do is they sell to the next step in the pharmacy supply chain. So they sell to what are known as wholesalers. These are companies that you may or may not know by names of McKesson, Cardinal, and AmerisourceBergen. And they buy the inventory from the manufacturers. And their role is the kind of last mile of logistics. So their supply chain logistics is to provide medication to hospital systems as well as pharmacies. And they sell to, as I state, pharmacies and hospital systems, and they have a unit price and they sell through the supply chain. And at this point, it makes sense. We could be talking about cans of soda to sneakers at this point, coming from a manufacturer, selling to a retailer, and there's a markup. But this is where everything starts to go haywire in the United States. Is the next step in the supply chain is where we have insurance. So you have this in the form of carriers as well as what are known as PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers. And their job is to administrate a benefit on behalf of a payer. A payer could be anything from a municipality to a school system to an employer. It could be the federal government. And they're administrating this pharmacy benefit. And you would think it would follow the same step. There's a price of a drug, there's some sort of reasonable markup that we see, and you get a drug price. But what happens in this last step is, unfortunately, the way our system has matured over the last 25 years is all the drug prices in the United States magically disappear. So up to this point, everything has been, hey, if I make a pill for $1, I'll sell it for $1.05, and they'll sell it to $1.10. And then you think, oh, so I should get it for $1.15, some slight markup in the supply chain, but all the drug prices disappear. And so this is the problem, is that there are no drug prices because this last step in the supply chain has really been defined by what's called spread pricing. So the administrators that, these are carriers and PBMs, what they did is they said, rather than charge you a fee to administrate your benefit plan, I'll just take a little bit in the middle.
Okay.
And it sounded reasonable, like, oh, okay. But what happened is they realized that they had a right to steal effectively because there was no limit to what you could charge. How would you ever know? There's no reference. There's no price point for a consumer other than if you could shop around, it's very difficult. There's over 130,000 what we call NDC-11 drug codes based upon different package size, different strength. And this is really, really difficult for people to understand relative price. So when you take all the pricing away and you leave someone in that last step in the supply chain, I'm administrating a benefit, I could suddenly create any price. And this is where everything goes sideways. And I never understood it because I come from pharmaceutical manufacturing. It's where I started my career off for the first 8 years of my career. And then I moved over to the payer side and I thought everything would behave the same way as I described. You make a drug, there's a markup, and you sell down the supply chain and everyone has a price. And I would read these contracts with the carriers and the PBMs and I'm like, why are there no drug prices in this agreement? And no one had a good answer for me.
Well, and to be honest, I still don't totally understand how they ended up abstracting out pricing and introducing this idea of spread. What did they like?
Yeah.
Who would allow that? That's not how buying and selling works.
Well, that's a great point. Who do you think sits on top of what we call self-insured benefits is really what we call anyone that is either what we call over 1,000 lives is a self-insured entity. So these are large Fortune 500 companies, municipalities, state workers, et cetera. But also it's fully insured business. This is coming under carriers, and these are small group plans or individual life plans. And so, what people kind of got caught up in was the concept of free. And everybody kind of said, I like free, but no
I
one
like
realized
free.
what the price was. What was the price of free? Well, wait, they're telling me it's free, right? It's
So
free.
so then just to further clarify, they got caught up in the idea of free because if you are the recipient, AKA an insured person, that drug appears to be free or close to free to you.
Yes. So what they did is imagine, let's just say in the old model, let's just say before 1995, roughly. And before 1995, benefit administrators like PBMs would kind of say, hey, I'll charge you 25 cents per script, flat fee to administrate your plan. And that's a reasonable amount of money. But then someone had the bright idea, be it marketing or sales, whatever, and they said, what if we went to the employers and the payers and the feds and we said, it's free. There's no more 25 cents per script, but I'm just going to take a little bit in between. And the country ate up this idea. I mean, the expansion of some of the fastest growing companies in the United States, if you were to literally go back in time and look from 2000 to 2007, some of the fastest growing companies in America are Express Scripts, which is now part of Cigna. It's Caremark, which is now part of CVS. So these companies exploded. Medco, another company, exploded in growth, which was purchased by Express Scripts, which was then in turn purchased by Cigna.
In
But
fact,
think
the
about
two you mentioned, we looked this up. McKesson and AmerisourceBergen are 8 and 9 on the Fortune 500, respectively.
Oh, all of these companies are top 20. So
Yeah.
Cigna, top 20, CVS, top 20, and United Healthcare, top 20. So
Free is never free.
Never free is never free. And then never underestimate what people can try and get away with. So maybe they started out and they said, it's 25 cents. We'll take 35. We'll take 50 cents. We'll take $1. And suddenly they realized nothing could stop them.
Because no one's looking. Literally not paying attention at all. They're just like, we get it for free at the end.
You can't see. And then what they started to do is to structure contracting so no one could see. So the first part of it is retail contracting. So what you do is you say, Mr. or Mrs. Pharmacist, you can never communicate price to the patient at the point of sale, even if you could sell it at a lower price. I don't want you ever to say anything to my customer. And the retailers signed these agreements because they want access to patients. And they said, wow, these carriers are powerful. Let me sign this. And they lost control of the supply chain early on. I want to say retailers probably lost control of the supply chain in early 2000s. And basically they signed these agreements so a patient could walk in and remember the pharmacist can see, especially if they're the owner of the pharmacist or a store manager and they have some understanding of acquisition cost, they can get a sense of the buy and the sell side, which is I'm typing in the insurance and the insurance company is telling me to charge for a Torvastatin $65. And they're probably saying, I'd be willing to do this for $17, but I can't say anything. And so that 25 cents suddenly grew to $5, to $10, to $20. And the optimization, because I do want to make this clear, there's nothing technically illegal about what they're doing. What they're doing is they're publicly traded companies and their fiduciary responsibilities to their shareholders, and they're trying to maximize value within the model that they've created. And so what's interesting is they suddenly said, I did this on retail. What else could I make more money on? And then you look at things like mail order. Be like, what if I made it mandatory mail? So if you have a script that's over 30 days supply, I'm going to say you must go through my mail order. Now,
What did I about that? Yeah.
What did I do in this magic trick? It sounds like, oh, well, and think about it. It's under the guise of, I'm going to do what's right for you. We want patient adherence to be higher. We want to do this. But what they're doing is they're creating the largest pharmacies in the United States. So what's interesting is the largest pharmacies in America by volume aren't necessarily Walgreens or Rite Aid. It's United Healthcare and Express Scripts through Cigna, because they have such huge mail, and which includes specialty drugs, high cost biologics. And so what you're doing is you're forcing utilization to your own pharmacy, which gives you now another way to make money, which is on acquisition cost. Remember, the pharmacy has a markup because they're buying the inventory, but now I can make double spread. I can make spread on my inventory because I am the pharmacy, and I can make spread on my customer. But it doesn't end. You keep going with the game.
It just gets worse. And there we go. We went ahead and put up United Health Group's overall, like historical stock chart from the 90s, it looks like.
Yes.
And you see that right in this period you're talking to, early 2000s, all of a sudden everything starts trending great.
Yep.
Nothing but up.
Now, what's interesting, if you were to layer in here on top of this chart, like Merck over the same time frame, or Pfizer, and what you're going to see is what grows faster is not necessarily the pharmaceutical manufacturer. So as I said, in the history of pharmacy benefits, and not to bore people with this, is it's important to remember what's happening is the PBM went from kind of a not that significant member of a supply chain to the all-encompassing and all-powerful controller of the pharmaceutical supply chain. So you start with retail, you add into your power through mail order, you expand through what's just called specialty drugs. These are the highest cost medication. And then you look at pharma and you go, well, pharmaceutical manufacturers, brand manufacturers have all the money. I would like their money.
Right.
And so if you think about the optimization of the traditional PBM model, what's next on the menu is, how do I get to pharma's money? And a really interesting thing happened. We call it the birth of what's known as a formulary. And a formulary kind of maybe was born with the right intent, which is, I would like to select the appropriate medication. My team has gone through, and we have done a survey and an analysis and collected data from the FDA and other area. And we have basically stated that we have determined precisely the right medication for you. Now, I want to pause for a second and think about how implausible this is. I use this example all the time. My sister and I are very close in age. We're genetically similar, but we have very different medication needs, as well as we respond very differently to medication. What are the odds that everyone in the country should respond to the same exact formulary?
Right.
It's zero.
It's zero. Especially considering how few women are even tested with respect to, like you can get into a whole women's health situation, and me and your sister will be in a real rage about it.
Oh, exactly. And so, I think we would all agree precision medicine is a much better way to go, and we'll eventually steer towards there. But what I'm trying to ground us in is all the ways that you could take advantage of this system to become in control. So what the PBM industry did is they created a formulary. And it started out like, hey, I have a formulary, and to be on my formulary, you provide me rebate dollars. And so what you're creating is kind of a pay-to-play economic scenario, because what if someone says, well, I don't really want to pay? Oh, well, then you're not on my formulary. Now, when the PBMs were a bit more fragmented, that didn't mean as much. Someone would be like, all right, well, you've got like 8% market share. They've got 15% market share. Not that big of a deal. But I always like to point out of every industry in the United States, the pharmaceutical industry is the greatest gift anyone could ever receive economically. It's an inelastic demand curve. It does not matter what happens with the stock market or interest rates. Drug utilization has held rock steady for 30 years. No other industry could make this claim. In addition, drug prices for brand and specialty only appear to miraculously go up. And then you have what we call the compounding effect of proliferation of specialty. The average cost of drugs is going up due to the introduction of high cost therapies. And so I'm not here to debate what's right or wrong about our patent system or the price of drugs. What I am trying to have everybody understand for a second is when you have the perfect market, you never have to innovate. I mean, think about the advances we've made in things like construction to real estate to even the finance, e-commerces. There's always been ebbs and flows, and you have to have the reset button, become more efficient, become more competitive. But what if you're in an industry you never have to be competitive? In fact, it rewards you for being slothful. And the more focused you are on profit, the better. So you don't innovate, you consolidate. So simultaneously, if we're looking at the history of the PBM industry, what's going on is, well, the PBM industry is eating itself. And you're seeing hyper consolidation. And they're literally from 2000 up until last month, there have been 30 plus mergers and acquisitions that have created jumbo entities. So you have literally three entities. You have Cigna Express Scripts, you have United, which owns Optum, you have CVS, which owns the carcass of Caremark, which they took over. And what this is you have three entities, depending upon how you do the math by utilization or GPO economics, controls anywhere from 75 to 90% of the purchasing power in the country. So this is important because if we go back to my formulary example, in early 2000s, pharma could kind of push back a little bit and be like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to pay your fee. Well, now I knock on your door and I say, I control 30% of the patient utilization in the country. And if you don't pay me to be on my formulary, you're probably going to be fired.
Yeah.
There's no pushback.
Nice little pharma business you got here.
Well, and this is interesting, is roughly around, by my estimate, 2010, pharma had basically ceded control of the supply chain. That for decades, pharma had basically controlled the US supply chain. And then by 2010, the liberation had happened and the PBMs had finally basically taken control. And what this meant is there was nothing to stop them from making more and more egregious asks. And people would often say, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And in this equation, I want everybody to think. People say, well, drug inflation is running rampant. Well, if someone's knocking on your door, PBMs every year, asking for more money in the form of rebates and manufacturer incentives, how do I pay for it? So you come to me each year and you say, let's say I'm a manufacturer and you're the PBM, Molly, and you knock on my door every year. It's your job to say, I need 10% more.
Yep.
Well, I could take 10% less out of my earnings, or I could raise my price 10%. So a lot of arguments are circular in the sense that pharma will oftentimes point a blameful finger at the PBM industry. The PBM industry will point a blameful finger at pharma. But I want everyone to understand the history here, because what you have is PBMs that are truly in control of the US supply chain. They're in control of everyone, from the manufacturer to the wholesaler to the pharmacies to the hospital systems. Make no mistake, they're in charge. The second thing is we have a system that's based upon price opacity and price encumbrance. Price opacity, as I mentioned, is nobody can see and understand the buy and sell side, the true and buy sell side of the economics of a prescription. And the other part is this price encumbrance. You have the ability to change the price at your sole discretion under a traditional PBM model to be anything you'd like. That is extraordinarily powerful, and it equates to very big earnings. And so, I want everyone to understand this is how we got here. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be a surprise. It took roughly 25, 30 years, and there were different points. But what it left us with is a scenario where literally you can charge anything. So the way I want people to think about this, as I often say, is imagine the US drug system is a casino, and we deal in probability and odds. And if I'm the casino, if we look at the US drug pricing system, our cash marketplace in the United States is about 6%. These are the people that either aren't covered by insurance or are, and they kind of hunt for a better price. But what does that mean? That means 94% of the time, a patient, when they go to a pharmacy, will accept any price I put in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you own the casino as the PBM, those are great odds.
Right.
And that is so important.
It's funny that you describe it as a casino, because to be honest, it sounds a lot, to be fair, I'm rewatching The Sopranos with my son, but it sounds a lot more like a mob shakedown that maybe started as an attempt at efficiency, right? Like, we don't want to ascribe values to what people were doing. Everybody was trying to make more money, and we've seen things spiral out of control. But so I guess let's fast forward to impact and then talk about solutions. What are I think we sort of understand what the impacts are of drug price inflation, but give us the kind of big picture of what the system has led to.
Well, I think it's led to a breaking point. I think you're seeing the FTC announce its investigation of the PBM industry, which is the first time in my recollection that they've done this.
And I have to be honest, like, I had never heard of this. I mean, none of this is stuff that I think people know or understand.
No. And, it's hiding in plain sight. It's at your local pharmacy, and it happens millions of times every day, people filling prescriptions, but they don't understand what caused these economics to become untenable. And I think the impact on the consumer is great. So back to this boiling point, you're seeing state legislation lean in. The state legislators are saying, wait a second, what's going on with these PBMs? Because the retailers are complaining. They're getting squeezed harder and harder by the PBMs. Hospital systems are complaining. Patients are complaining because you're seeing this price change back to when price is encumbered through spread pricing. Price changes every second of every day for every drug. And that's a complete lie. Drug pricing in the United States is incredibly stable. Brand drugs change about twice a year. You can set a clock to it. It's typically January and July. And generic drugs typically deflate depending upon your purchase schedules, which could be monthly or quarterly, depending upon your size and what your routine is. But the point of it is, it certainly isn't changing every hour of every day for every drug. That's artificial price encumbrance. And so the impact, again, is patients are complaining, but for the first time, I think oversight groups, be it HHS, CMS, Department of Labor, recently is announced they're enforcing the Consolidated Appropriations Act, which is a way to kind of measure profitability and reporting by PBMs, as well as brokers and consultants that sell these services, which could be helpful. The FTC is leaning in. So what you're seeing is we hit this boiling point and everyone's complaining about drugs. And I think finally people are kind of recognizing there's not one person in the supply chain truly responsible for these, multiple people, but the outsized kind of role in pharmacy is the PBM. And I think people are starting to understand this.
Gotcha. Well, certainly you do. And so it sounds like what you're also describing is possibly a regulatory, but also an awareness environment that creates room for competition. Enter Capital RX.
Correct. So as I mentioned, I started in pharmaceutical manufacturing. I moved over to the audit and procurement side. So this is reviewing contracts for large self-insured payers. These could be carriers, Fortune 500 companies, even government agencies. And the one thing I realized is none of these people were truly getting what they thought they were getting. And how could you? Again, you have a contract with no drug pricing in it. There are no drug prices. How could I ever kind of figure out what I'm supposed to get? Because it's so complex. We have a very complex classification system of what's the definition of a brand, a generic, a single source, a multi-source, limited supply, DAW handling. And this is done almost to confuse people because everything in the United States has a list price called an NDC 11. And it would be very simple. Just take the NDC 11 and put a price next to it, the same way we price popsicles to lampshades. And so what I saw I often say I was writing a 13-year thesis on where did the drug pricing go. And I finally got to the point and I said, I'm never going to change the way drugs are priced or patients are serviced by auditing the books or helping with a procurement workflow.
Right.
So I think what we wanted to be able to do was, why don't we take a step back and get to the real problem here, which is the person that administrates the benefit has all the control. As I just said, the PBM is in charge of the supply chain. Well, why don't we create a model that we want this to make sense? Let's create a transparent pricing model. Let's create a public ledger of pricing. Let's not push around the pharmacist. Let's pass through 100% of the value, but let's do it and be super competitive. And this is where we started to develop the technology at my organization to compete with the big three. So let me pause. And I know you probably have a host of questions, but I had to get a lot of this out because it's important to ground everybody to just how we got here.
Yeah. You may have seen it go by in our live chat, people were saying, I feel like 99% of Americans could benefit from knowing this information because nobody totally understands how pricing got this way. It's almost everybody's, you blame big pharma, and it turns out that's a whole ecosystem that is working together and, making trillions. How does it work? Like, how are you doing things differently? How are you enabling that transparency? And if you could give us a real world example of sort of like what that might mean for, my mom and insulin prices.
Sure. So the first thing that we wanted to do was you have to kind of have the discipline. You have to have the discipline to what I call to never take the bad money. The bad money is spread pricing on drugs. Because the moment you make money on a marked up prescription, one, I don't think it's right. Because if you think about it, you can't mark up a medical procedure in the United States. I don't know how the heck we got to marking up drugs, but I always said you have to start with the discipline to never take the bad money. So you can't take spread on rebates, you can't take spread on mail or specialty, etc. So we decided to just charge a flat administrative fee. So this could be per member per month flat administrative fee, or it could be a flat per script fee. We let our clients choose. It really doesn't matter. But what we're trying to say is we're performing a very valuable function. When you administrate a plan, you're keeping track of who's eligible, you're setting up the plan design, you're doing the clinical review, the clinical edits, drug utilization, drug to drug interaction, you're reimbursing the network on behalf of the payers, you're billing them, et cetera. You're doing hundreds of what I would say administrative tasks to maintain a benefit. The key is to just always remember that's what your job is, not to be the drug czar of marking up drug prices. And so what we wanted to do is to kind of create what we call our clearinghouse model. And this is this concept of a public ledger. Our office is located in New York City. I say all the time, I walk by the most famous clearinghouse in the world, which is the New York Stock Exchange. And it lets the buy and sell side freely communicate on pricing. Molly, you would like to buy $100 worth of IBM. I would like to sell you $100 of IBM. We are communicating freely on price. This does not exist in prescription benefits. And so we wanted to do this. And to do it, we also wanted to never be in a position where we manipulate or set price. So we chose for our pricing benchmark, we use NADAC, National Average Drug Acquisition Cost. You're like, what is this NADAC thing? It comes from the federal government. The federal government uses it in Medicaid reimbursement in 40 plus states. And we like this because CMS controls it. The federal government, they set it, they update it every week. And what it's doing is I'm saying, I have nothing to do with price. I'm giving a benchmark for our retail pharmacies. So we go out and contract with all the major national network of pharmacies, the independents, the PSAOs. And basically we say, we would like you to either sell the drug at NADAC plus your dispensing fee, or if you could do a better job, feel free to do it. Now, this is where trust comes in. There hasn't been trust in the pharmacy supply chain in 30 years because if I'm a pharmacy and I normally give savings to a traditional PBM, they're going to keep the money. It's never going to make it to the patient or plan, or a disproportionate part. And so pharmacies are very hesitant to offer a better price. So we decided to do something very unique, which is we don't set price. We give you the ability, the pharmacy, better than benchmark, NADAC. If you would like to set a better price, please do. And the patient will always receive it. And the way that we prove that is all of our customers get the same price. Now, that seems like a pretty that seems normal, right? Shouldn't everyone get the same price?
Obstacles and lampshades. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, think about it. You walk into a pharmacy and you go to the OTC counter and you pick up a bottle of Tylenol. Doesn't matter if you're insured or uninsured. Doesn't matter if you work for the biggest employer or the smallest. It's the same price, correct? And it will be the same price for months on end until the manufacturer says, I'm going to increase or decrease price based upon supply and demand, real market forces. That's not how prescriptions work.
Right.
So you go 50 feet back to the register to the prescription counter, and the price changes every second of every day. It's like spinning a roulette wheel. Am I today's winner or loser?
Which, to be fair, not unlike the stock market, but shouldn't be that way.
No, but at least with the stock market, you could see the buy and sell side.
True.
Yep. Neither one can see the true price. And even if the pharmacy is willing to communicate a better price, contractually, they can't.
Right.
They've.
You're saying, so the difference is you're saying these are the prices. A, one big innovation. Here's how much it costs. B, we will not require you to charge a higher price if a lower price is available. And then C, the consumer will in fact know what the price is.
Agreed. And what's interesting is because we use NADAC pricing, there's no massive price swings. So I often say if someone's filling a atorvastatin, let's just say in Washington State or in Florida or in New Hampshire or in Arizona, it's the same price until the price is changed by CMS. Or to be fair to the retailer, they could say, hey, I've got $4 generics. I'm Walmart, or I'm Albertsons. I have $0 amoxicillin. I have specials on things. That's awesome. Let that value get to the end patient in the plan. And so to do this, we had to reimagine how claims are processed in patient service. So we had to write our own technology from the ground up. And this is very important because, as I mentioned earlier, when you have the perfect market, there's no need for innovation. And to be clear, my competitors scaled with people. And they never really invested in technology. Their technology is 20 or 30 years old, depending upon which software platform it is. And you'd be like, well, is software that important? I said, yes. Think about any major operational system. I mean, imagine going to someone like Walmart or Amazon and saying you have no software for your supply chain logistics and operations. They would be like, I can't even do my job. There was no investment in workflow management, in workflow automation, because think about it, the highest cost against drugs are the people and how cheaply you could administrate a plan. And I always say there are two lines in healthcare. There's your top line, which is gross margin. And I will say this very clearly. My company does not purchase drugs cheaper than the largest entities in the pharmacy supply chain. But there's another line that's equal or in greater importance, which is what is your cost? What is your net margin? And so this is your administrative cost. So we built our own technology platform, Judy. Judy's short for adjudication, and she is the brains behind our organization because everything runs on Judy. And we had this hypothesis, which is if we could create workflow automation and make our organization 70, 80% more efficient than my competitors, not only could I close the gap in their pricing advantage, I could beat them. I could offer cheaper prices. And more importantly, I would never be forced to take what I felt was the bad money, the money based upon spread.
Well, and this is a really important point because when you first talked about not taking the bad money, my investor brain went, hey, I hear you leaving money on the table. And so it sounds like what you're saying is that you've automated this process enough. You've introduced enough technology that your margins will make up for not taking the bad money. Like you believe that you'll be able to make the same amount of money by also introducing price transparency and maybe having, hopefully it sounds like a downstream positive benefit on the industry.
Oh, well, absolutely. And so, I always go to the metrics that matter. So we're a customer first organization. So some people would say, well, you're leveraging all this technology, does that
let me interject there. Who is the customer?
Yeah, the customer that buys our services is an employer group, typically 500 employees or more. So in the United States, when you hit 500 employees or more, you become self-insured. That means you're taking on the risk. I don't need a risk taker or carrier to cover my risk. I can pay for my own bills. And so the employers, they're also municipalities. They're also union groups, hospitals, health systems. So anyone who has a benefit to be administrated we can provide a solution for it. We can also power the back end for regional carriers and health plans, again, so we can be that administrative platform. But the main buyer for you to think about is any large employer in the United States. We're providing this administrative service.
Gotcha. Okay. So how do you hope that, or do you hope that the healthcare landscape will change overall? I'm imagining that this is a little bit like Robinhood, which came along and offered free, stock trading. And then all of a sudden everybody had to do that. Like, do you believe that you will have that transformative and impact on the industry? Do you even want to, or is this your like competitive advantage forever?
No, I hope everyone does. I think the industry needs to think this way. And I use Robinhood quite a bit. If you think about it, once upon a time, to make a stock trade in the 90s, I believe the rule is you could keep 10% of the value of the trade. It almost sounds criminal. People used to charge hundreds of dollars for a stock trade, and then companies like E-Trade and Ameritrade said, I'll do it for $59.95 and $19.95 and $9.95. And then Robinhood comes along and says, I'll do it for $0.
Yeah.
And then in my Chase account, they'll do it for $0, because you're setting the market for what the true administrative fee should be. And so I do believe, exactly as you're saying, is you're going to expose what the real price and value is to administrate a plan on behalf of a self-insured entity. And that will settle itself based upon the services and what the market can bear. So I completely agree with your example. I hope everybody gets here. It's our advantage today, but I believe that others will understand the importance of this. And I hope many of them use our technology to get there. I would like nothing more than to liberate drug prices on behalf of the US consumer.
Yeah, us too. And then talk to me about the sales pipeline. How hard is it for your customers to switch?
Yeah. Well, I would say, first of all, switching is very easy. This is our calling card because we have a modern technology platform. So my competitors take months to set up a new plan, and it's a real headache. But if you were to speak to any of my customers, we literally plow through this in hours to set up a new plan, because we have a natural language framework, which enables my people to very easily set up a new plan design and benefit and do the interoperability and the integration. Not to bore you with the details, but we connect to a lot of different things, including the carrier for accumulators and eligibility feeds. But the whole point of it is it's a seamless process that's very easy to do and to switch. And this helps quite a bit. But I think what you're trying to get to, and part of the question, is how hard is it to convince someone to move to someone like us? And so we've been around now.
You described like a pretty, well integrated mob operation, and sometimes those can be a little hard to disrupt without ending up in a barrel.
Oh yeah. Oh, no, completely agree. So, but part of it is, I often say there are no shortcuts in healthcare. So if anyone says, hey, my sister is a bigwig executive at this Fortune 500 company, and they're just going to move their business to us, I'm like, I've never seen that, because normally someone is going to say, well, wait a second, how many 200,000 life accounts do you have? And if you're new to the business, your answer is going to be 0. And they're going to be like, hit the road. So, no one has a tolerance for risk when it comes to benefits. So what I say is there's no shortcuts in healthcare. So we've been at this for 4.5 years. And what I often say is I never want to go back. I never want to go back and sell 4 years ago, because it's miserable. Think about it, Molly. You're my customer and I'm trying to convince you. And I say, hey, here's the reason why you should use Capital RX. The first question is going to be like, well, how many other customers do you have? I'm going to be like, including you? And you're going to be like, oh, that's very cute. And they're like, how long have you been in business for? And you're going to be like, including this month?
Right.
And you're going to be like, are you trying not to get the sale? But I'm trying to be honest. But my point is, you start by selling 500 life cases to get to 1,000 life cases, to 2,000, to 4 and 8 and 16. And I make this point all the time because I want people to understand there are no shortcuts in healthcare. You build upon your trust score. So if I've been scored to service 10,000 life cases, yeah, I might be able to sell a 20,000 life case, but I'm not selling a 200,000 life case anytime soon. And this is what we had to build upon. And also, if you think about it, statistically speaking, as I stated earlier, depending upon your accounting for market control, the big 3 Cigna, United, and CVS control 80% of the self-insured marketplace. So 80% of the time, I've got to displace a Fortune 20 company.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's never easy, but it gets easier each year. And part of it is because our performance and our track record. But it's also, I give a huge amount of thanks to my customers. They're our best sellers. My best brand ambassadors, hands down, are my customers. I have more sales for my customers talking to other people, be it at conferences, at just get togethers, people knowing people in industry. HR people are pretty tight.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll just say, "Oh my goodness, I'm having the best experience with Capital RX. You should speak to them."
Mm-hmm.
And I think that goes back to that trust and strength of your brand.
And timing, right? Timing matters. You're doing this at this moment when, as you described earlier, this conversation is really increasing. I also want to ask you how, if at all, because there's also been news about drug prices specifically around like Mark Cuban's new company, Cost Plus Pharmacy. How does this interact with that, if at all, or how could it? And is it part of this ecosystem of like, let's upend this?
Yeah. So if you think about it, my competitors create walls. They only want to direct drug spend to their channels, especially when it comes to like delivery or home delivery, like Mark Cuban Cost Plus.
Mm-hmm.
We have the opposite model. So we're agnostic in our network. So I'll take anyone in our network. Remember, my job is to administrate and find the best price and the best service. So why wouldn't I want Mark's company to give me inventory and price?
Right.
And the answer is yes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's the same, not just Mark, but anyone. And I want to make this clear. It's at retail. We allow any pharmacy in our network, as long as obviously they're in compliance and in good standing with the state. I always want to make that point of that. But I think the other part of it is, I don't care if you have a mail channel. I'm saying, give me a price list and I'll post it. And if people want to use your services because you're offering a lower price, fantastic. That's the way the market should be. If I'm truly an administrator, what I want to do is help my client and their patients find the lowest price and bridge that and communicate to them. So yes, the answer is, I applaud anyone like Mark and others that have mail and delivery services that have figured out ways through partnerships and direct contracting to provide lower drug prices to the US public. I am all for it, because remember, I don't make any money on fulfillment. This is what makes me very different in our organization from our competitors. We do not make money on the filling of a prescription or the spread pricing or the acquisition cost or the rebating or anything around that. So it makes it very easy for us to make partnerships and direct people to the appropriate channel.
And then last question, do you think, when we look at seemingly intractable problems like this, I'm a climate tech investor, so I, am acutely aware of this. Do you think that disruption and competition ultimately are going to have more impact than these sort of slow walk regulatory moves, or do they have to go hand in hand?
I have personally never built a business plan or model around federal intervention or oversight. So I genuinely always believe in innovation and competition driving a market. I do believe it's important for the federal government to lean in and review many of these rules and practices that have kind of emerged over 20 years, not necessarily for myself in competition, but who's the largest payer in the country? It's the federal government for Medicare, Medicaid, 340B, DOD, VA, take their pick. They buy billions of dollars of drugs. I would like my federal government to, one, get a fair price, because they're not. It's by their own omission. And so if you look at the COB report from February of 2021, it compares net drug prices across things like DOD, VA, Medicare, Medicaid, 340B. And it's not like really tight, like, oh, well, we have, the best price in the United States, and that's what we've negotiated for all of my billing. It's the exact opposite. There's a delta on net cost of up to 150%. So I often joke, if the federal government can't get it right, what chance does the average patient? And so I do believe that leaning in on a regulatory standpoint and reviewing things are healthy, but I do believe innovation is the only way, and through fair competition, it's the only way the industry is truly going to make a monumental leap in the private sector space.
AJ Loiacono is CEO of Capital RX. Thanks for fighting the good fight. Good luck.
Thank you so much for having me, Molly.
Good luck with the mob. I know I'm watching a lot of Sopranos, but
I'm from Jersey. It's okay.
We'll be looking out for you. All right. This is fantastic. That was so interesting and great. I love it. And Justin, you can hear Justin. He's going to pop on and just let you know where to upload that file to us.
Yes.
Yes.
I am just dropping in the private chat.
Great. I have to drop off her, but really, thank you. This is fantastic.
Yes.
Please keep